How's it going, everybody? Today I am joined by the new general manager for the Ozarks Lunkers, a new team in the Arena League. I almost called them the Lurkers so many times when I was looking this up. But then also the owner and operator of the Queen City Insane Asylum. How you doing today, Caleb?
Good, man. Good. Excited to be here. Excited to share a little bit about what's going on and be on a platform that you worked really hard to build, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's definitely been a grind, but it's been a grind that I've had a lot of success with due to people like you who were willing to take the time out of your life to come on here and speak with us and kind of give us your story and talk a little bit more. Sorry about that. Amber alert right there. But yeah, to talk a little bit more about your story and kind of how you've gotten to where you're at in this industry.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's been a weird last couple of days, kind of with stuff just flying from every direction. But finally getting a chance to settle in a little bit and know what's going on, that I can finally speak effectively on the whole change of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, let's go ahead and get into this. But I wanted to start with a question that I always kind of like to ask everybody. But how did you ultimately first get involved in being a team owner and then ultimately up to a general manager where you're at today?
Total accident, man. I didn't play middle school or high school football. I went to a small high school here in Springfield. Ended up accidentally walking on to SBU in Bolivar. Played some D2 ball. Again, wasn't a noteworthy player. I learned a lot about the game. I kind of fell in love with the process and the weight room and film study. And for me, I didn't have the pedigree of football most guys had. So when I graduated, I felt like I had more football left. So I got connected with semi-pro ball, 8-man ball in Joplin for the four-state fusion. Played with them for a season and a half. And then came back to Springfield, found a team in Springfield, the Missouri Warriors, played with them for a season. Felt like maybe I was just at a place where I was done. A guy was like, "Hey, you should give owning your own team a shot." And I was like, "Man, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know." But I was like, "Let's just host a tryout and see what happens." So we hosted a tryout, and 70 dudes showed up, and we are like, "Whoa, okay, maybe there's a demand for this." So um, when we saw the demand, when we saw the just kind of the need for excellence in this industry. There were a lot of guys that were willing to jump on board and help. And so over the last couple of years, we've tried to build, the legacy of Queen City.
Well, what a legacy you guys have built. I mean, over the years, you've played against some leagues that are not semi-professional or professional leagues, and the words that some of these coaches have said about the matchup that you guys gave them, and ultimately the way you run your organization has just been inspiring to hear. Because a lot of times you can hear a lot of negative stories about semi-professional football, but your team and your organization, sorry about that, was always one of the highest level in terms of the way they treated their players and how everything has kind of progressed with the team in terms of success. So I wanted to kind of point out that I spoke with Haran O'Neal right after you guys played them, and he had nothing but great things to say about what you guys brought to the table in terms of competition, and on top of that, the way you ran your organization once again. So I'm kind of curious. How did you go about kind of building that mentality with your organization that, hey, we're going to come to play no matter if it's the best team in the world or, a high school level team?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we were just fortunate to have really great athletes. You can have as stellar of a marketing plan and scheme as you want, but if the product itself doesn't make sense, then no one's going to care to watch it. So again, I'd love to say we had some real strategic plan of making it successful, but it was built on the backs of the guys that play for us. We were very fortunate to have guys that were willing to make 3-hour trips at 6 a.m. practices. Guys were just bought in. So first and foremost, it was having kind of a core group of guys that believed in your vision, that shared the same heart for what you wanted. And then as far as, kind of developing the brand, they were all things that all of these guys had found successful in their own lives. As fathers, as husbands, as community leaders, they just wanted to be held accountable for things. A lot of these guys were D1, D2 college athletes, and so they were used to structure, where the semi-pro world is a little bit more flippant and kind of just adjust and fly by the seat of your pants. I'm not that way. I'm very prepared. I like to be very scheduled and organized, and almost to a deficit sometimes. But a lot of the guys will tell you that they just never had to wonder what was up. We also really wanted to make sure that there was a culture of um, guys participating in the decisions that were made. Ultimately it came down to my final decision, but when you share responsibility in the decisions made, guys take ownership of them and are more committed to making them work. And so then collectively as a whole, you just had a culture of guys that participated from all aspects.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to bring up this comment that we have here because I think it's a perfect comment for exactly how Queen City has progressed. But he says, always good to run things with professional standards, even when you're not fully professional, and it opens more doors that way. So obviously, very clearly true because you ended up here with the Ozark Lunkers, which we'll get to in just a moment. But how long were you ultimately the owner for QC, and what year was it that you launched the team in?
So we launched QC in 2019, right before COVID.
Oh
So
man,
if anybody wants to know business development plans, don't start something pre-pandemic because it's real hard. So we started in 2019. We had a great turnout. We were excited. We built all this momentum, practicing, had this product we were super proud of. And then COVID hit. And they were like, hey, not only can you not play contact sports, you can't even be in the same room with people 6 feet away. So I go, how am I supposed to run a football program with this pandemic going on? So I'll be honest, we had all these pre-existing agreements that they called back last minute. We're like, hey, sorry. And I was, it wasn't only me that was disappointed. It was 35, 40 guys that had been given everything they had for it. So I did what I could, and I went to work and I called everybody I knew and all the contacts I had. And so we ended up getting a call from a gentleman that owned a baseball complex in Fordland, which is a little small town outside of Springfield. And so we just started playing our games in the outfield of this baseball stadium. And it was the same thing, as back to that comment, we wanted to put the pro back in semi-pro. So jerseys, helmets, marketing, game day operation stuff, whatever we could do, we just wanted to be excellent from top to bottom. So we started in 2019 in a baseball outfield in Fordland, Missouri. And then the next year we upgraded to a grass field in Nixa that kind of came our home. It's called Cy Sports. It was a little baseball complex that had a football area that had this nice little like hill where people would set up food trucks, and we kind of built this culture. And then year number 3, we transitioned to a turf field at the college. It's a high school turf field that's shared with the college that plays soccer there. And then this last year, we were able to play at that same field, and then obviously finish our season at Missouri State, a D1 stadium, kind of where we got to play our final game at. So from literal rags to riches, it was kind of a cool story like that.
no doubt, that's amazing. I mean, talk about a progression over just a short amount of time there. 4 years, and you went from playing in the outfield of a baseball field to a D1 college. That's amazing. That's amazing. So obviously, the main reason you're here is because of the announcement recently that you were hired as the general manager for the Lunkers. Not to take away anything you've done with Queen City, because again, just tremendous success with that program. But you piqued my curiosity when I saw the announcement, so I had to bring you on here to kind of ask you more questions about the Arena League, the structure, all of that. But first, before we get to that, when did this offer come about at first? And then how long did it take you to ultimately decide that this was an opportunity you wanted to pursue?
So full transparency, man, when the announcement came about the Lunkers, it wasn't the Lunkers first. It was just arena football in Springfield. And so everyone knew that our ultimate vision for Queen City was to bring professional indoor football to Springfield. So our fan base lit up about it. They had to vote. And so all of our Queen City fans went and voted for Springfield indoor football. Well, then when it was announced that Springfield had won by a landslide, we were like, cool, like we helped make that happen. Well, then when they came out that it wasn't us and it was going to be 6-man football and it was going to be the Ozarks Lunkers, we were like, oh, whoa, this is so backwards and opposite of what we thought. So I personally was super defeated because I was like, man, it was hard enough to build a product here, but now there's a competing product that's got adequate resources and financing. Like, what do we do now? So, I had a lot of people ask me about it, and I was like, man, this is going to be hard on us. So, I ended up through a real estate connection. I sell real estate here in Springfield. Was like, hey man, this is the owner. I think you guys would really get along. You should at least call him and kind of see if there's any synergy with your products and say maybe you guys could play at the same place, whatever. So I call Mark Burgess, the owner, and I go, hey man, I'm Caleb. I'm on the Queen City football team. He goes, man, I've heard a lot about you. Your name keeps popping up. I really think that what you've done with Queen City is pretty cool. And I was like, man, I appreciate that. This is what I think. This is where I'm at. He's like, well, maybe we should just get breakfast. And so it's okay. So I go meet with him and one of the consultants he had hired here locally, a guy that I really respect, Kirk Conquest, and we just had breakfast and we just talked a little bit about the vision and he was very honest. He had the resources, he just didn't have the know-all for football, and he very spoke to what I had done and what Queen City had done here in the area and how he respected it. So he was like, man, I appreciate this. Like, we'll be in touch. So like a day later, he goes, hey, I think we need to meet again. I'm like, okay. So we meet and we sit down and he goes, hey, we had 26 resumes. We've interviewed 6. We had a guy we thought was going to be the sure guy. He was flying in from the East Coast. We were getting him relocation, all this stuff. He goes, and then the last minute, it just didn't work. He goes, and so you kind of came out of nowhere. We've been having conversations and it just seems to make sense. You're a local guy. So he said, we're interested in maybe bringing you on as a general manager. And I was like floored. And I go, oh, okay. And so he asked me about Queen City. And so one of the things I really respect the most about this whole process is that everyone involved, they never downplayed Queen City. They never wanted Queen City to go away. They never wanted to, it was not like, hey, it's a competitive product, get rid of it. It was all so graciously handled. So for me, I was like, man, this is something I could join. This is something I could be a part of. We had a shared vision. They didn't want to just, micromanage me. They said, we believe in what you've already done. How do we assist you in continuing to do that? And so I asked a bunch more questions. I said, what's it going to look like for the players? I said, because for me, one of my biggest goals has been to provide a standard of excellence for these guys to play in. And he was like, well, what is your desire? Where are things that you're at? And so, we talked back and forth. And so things like, giving guys a pizza post game, that's dumb. That's not professional. That's not, you want a professional football player and then you give them a pizza. I know you can get a cheap deal. I know you can do all that stuff, but as far as but professional players, like you go to the NFL and look at their nutrition guide. Like I want a nutritionist on staff. I want meal plans. I want steak. I want lobster. I want meals made for these guys. I want swag bags. I want name and likeness deals. I want playing cards. I want incentives. I want salaries that are competitive. And they were like, cool, just draw it up and submit it. So the more I got involved with the guys that were in charge and their vision, the more I was just like, dude, I could really do this.
That's awesome. First of all, I'm glad to hear that nobody ever once mentioned getting rid of Queen City. I really like the fact that they weren't concerned about the competition, that they looked at it as a potential partnership. That's very smart. I mean, if you're going to be a professional team in the area, at the very least, why wouldn't you go scout the players that top semi-professional team has, let alone the coaches and team builders? I mean, makes perfect sense to me. So I really like that thought process. And I'm glad that you ultimately decided to make this move, because it seems like it could be great for you and potentially great for some of your players at Queen City. So, I mean, that's my ultimate first question for you. I mean, obviously, you're now looking to build a new roster completely from scratch. Are there any players from the Queen City Insane Asylum that you're going to be looking to sign?
Oh, for sure. I don't want to prematurely put anything out there, but um, the reason that we got the recognition, the reason we got the pro contracts, the reason they got offers at those pro games is because there are guys on our roster that have deserved to be paid to play football for a long time and just haven't been given the shots or the looks that they deserve. So one of the biggest excitements for me in taking this position was getting to hand someone a contract that I had seen play for me already, that I believed in and knew they deserved to get paid for, that I could be like, yeah, we did it. Good for you. Go play ball and get paid for it. So there's a lot of guys on our roster that I think have a real shot at playing ball for the Lunkers.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, that's really the positive part about all of this, is that the ability for a lot of your guys and you as well to kind of make that next level, level up as players always seem to say. But I obviously want to ask, with you accepting this role, you're obviously going to have a lot of your focus on the Lunkers. Where does that leave Queen City?
So Queen City, and it's important to like shape it like this. Queen City's a vision. It manifested itself into a product essentially, but Queen City's vision ultimately was to provide a standard of excellence and an opportunity for players to play. And so Queen City doesn't go away in that capacity. So the hard part about becoming so dominant that these guys have is that they run themselves out of certain leagues. We went to look at playing 8-man locally, and there was just nowhere for us to play. So then we looked at playing, 8-man farther away, and it was, on Sundays at 3 o'clock, and it just didn't make sense for travel. And so that's what ended up making us make the 11-man transition this year, and kind of last minute having to put 11-man program together. An 11-man requires, essentially years of building a product and an infrastructure that we were kind of just trying to transition 8 to 11 last minute. So, Queen City essentially has a pedigree of excellence that we just want to continue, as far as how I adopt Lunkers football. And so really it's just the idea of transitioning local Springfield football into the professional level and giving guys that have just continued to play good football, whether it's in a Lunkers jersey or a Queen City jersey, the chance to get paid to play it.
That makes perfect sense. Given your new role with this team, let's discuss some of the structure that you wanted to bring forward. You said competitive contracts. Do you have any sort of number on that right now, or is that still very much up in the air?
Well, so one of the things that when I saw the spreadsheet early, I saw that there was costs built into housing guys. I really think that there's enough talent in the Southwest Missouri area that we don't have to have out of town guys. So my desire would be to take those funds allocated for housing and dump them into player salaries to make competitive salaries. Now, the league, I think, is going to cap salaries at a certain point so that you're not out here just throwing tons and tons of bread around for no reason. But again, even in some of the pro leagues that I've had conversations with, I think the guys are too expendable. I think there's too much turnover in arena football. And I really feel like for arena to work in a market like Springfield, these guys have to be integrated and marketed as individuals, not just as players. So, as I'm starting to look at some of these guys, they're stud athletes, but there's not a huge following. So if we were to bring them on, we would help sit down with them and say, hey, we got to market you as a person, as a father, as a businessman, as a local community outreach person, and kind of building kind of their profile so that when they go places, people want to wear their jerseys, so that kids want to get their autographs. So no specific number, but just out loud, I want guys to know and feel like they're at the professional level, however I can accommodate that. So the way that they dress, the way that they're treated, press conferences, the things that they have, state-of-the-art equipment, announcements, everything that I can do. I now have adequate resources at my disposal to use. And so I want to make sure that I allocate those towards the player profile experience.
Interesting. I like that thought process. So do you have any ideas on roster size and ultimately how many teams will launch in 24? I've heard 4. I see 8 cities on the website, so I'm kind of a little confused about that.
So I think if they're smart, they stay with 4. And I think the smart thing is that, again, in arena ball, you run the risk of getting too many teams that need help that you have to chase around and follow up with. And if we really want the arena league to take off the way that we hope it does, we need the teams that are vetted, that have the right staff, personnel, and vision to kind of compete. So I think 2024 is just going to be 4 teams. But roster size is 15. It's 6-man football. It gets really, really wild. I've been having some conversations with guys this week about what that looks like. And so it's 15-man rosters, 6-man football, but it's Ironman style, which means 6 guys play on offense that are all eligible receivers. Quarterback that receives the snap is not allowed to scramble past the line of scrimmage, but he can pitch it to someone who becomes essentially a scrambling quarterback. Defense has no restrictions. They can line up wherever, do whatever, be whatever. When change of possession happens, only one guy is allowed to be subbed on and off. So those five other guys that were playing offense now turn into defenders. So as we start looking for the player type that we want to recruit, not only do they need to be dynamic athletes, they need to be good at tackling, blocking, route running, catching, in shape, high football IQ, and the perfect body type that can do all those things.
Wow, that's interesting. 15-man rosters. So essentially, you figure you've got 2.5 times what you need to start. That's tough with Ironman football. That's definitely gonna be a challenge to build a roster for sure. Um, Man, very interesting. So Freddie also comments and he says, "I've read those rules about roster composition, so that's definitely going to be very interesting to follow along with." Um, do you have anybody in mind in terms of like players you're looking at already?
Sure. Yeah, we've got a couple guys we're looking at, but really it kind of comes down to the athlete type. As much as I love the 350-pound, big dog that's a killer, again, it's the same arena size. It's still a 50-yard long, 28.5-yard wide field. So where I really am going to find my true athletes are going to be guys that can make open field tackles. Because anybody can be fast, but if someone gets loose and with five guys to make a tackle, you've seen it's the A7FL kind of. So again, you take one guy off the field, and so someone that's got really elusive characteristics in their athleticism, they can go score. And so this is going to be a high scoring game. So really, it's a DB with good hands that we're kind of looking for, and then we'll probably have the peak of our roster at a certain size, and like the minimal size we'll take as well. So if he's Tyreek Hill speed, we'll sacrifice some size. But if he's an incredible blocking, tackling presence on the field, we'll sacrifice some speed. So that's kind of where we're looking at.
Interesting. That yeah, man, it's going to be very interesting to follow along with the roster building alone in this league. So a couple more questions. Do you know about what time of year the league will take place?
Yeah, so we're kicking off 1st of June. So summer product. Obviously, with it being so hot, it's gonna be way more fun to be indoors. We here in Springfield are super lucky. They're building the Wilson Logistics Arena. It's a 6,500 person brand new state of the art arena. We'll have box seating, VIP, field seating. We're looking at doing. I'm in the jersey design, turf design, everything like that right now. I'm getting to have my hands in. So it's going to be a super super cool thing to do.
Definitely agree. June 1st seems like a good time for launching a league. It's kind of a I don't want to say a dead time because you obviously have the USFL, you have the IFL going on at that point, PIF as well, but it definitely is a little bit more toned down than other times of the year for sure. Also, one more question and I'll get you out of here. Do you know what the playoffs will look like for a four team league?
So postseason play is going to be interesting. I actually have sales training in Kansas City this coming week, where we'll have some league rules and league postseason play questions get answered there. Obviously, we've been waiting to finalize some certain markets and make sure we had all of our ducks in a row before we started announcing too much. But the postseason play will be interesting, hopefully yielding a potential another home game for us in Springfield.
Very interesting. Any talks on where the championship will land yet, or is that kind of be this week
So,
as well?
I mean, it just depends. I think if they're wanting to do a neutral site or if it's going to be, highest seed, it all kind of comes down to, um, again, with the arena market, unless you have the money to buy and build your own arena that sits vacant 90% of the year, always trying to find arenas that have those open dates. So again, it's early. But at least here in Springfield, we are pretty committed to getting after marketing and developing kind of this week.
Absolutely. So we got a couple more comments. It says, yeah, it sounds like you'll want guys who can play all different positions, but some of them might slot in certain places more often.
For sure.
Definitely
So
sounds
we
like that.
we have taken kicking out. So it's a quarterback throw off or kickoff. So there's no kicking. So really, we need a stud returner. and sometimes those guys aren't the biggest body type. So someone that's super elusive, super quick, that knows the arena well, that can get loose and go score for us is important as well.
Interesting. So Freddie also mentions, I've noticed the branding of the teams in this league are kind of wacky and unique, almost like minor league baseball. So he follows that up with a question. Any idea if marketing in the game day environment will be similar to how minor league baseball does stuff?
So that's a great question. And a lot of times I get the Savannah Bananas comment where people are like, are you guys planning on doing anything like that? And here's what I'll say to it. I love fan experience because it doesn't matter. You can play a really great product in front of 10 people and that's not as fun. So I want these guys to come play in front of thousands of people. But I don't want to ruin the integrity of the game with too many theatrics. So I have a very healthy grip on the threshold I want to have as far as what fans can be excited about from a cinematic theatric feel without causing a divide in what players really commit to as far as putting out a quality product. So yeah, the names and logos and color schemes are super wild. But the reality is that if you make a valid product, people will wear and talk about whatever you put on. I mean, we're proof of that with light pink, baby blue, a gorilla named Insane Asylum. So
Yeah, 100%. 100%. When I first saw the name for the Queen City Insane Asylum, I was kind of taken aback at first. I was like, "Wow, that's really an actual team name." And then I started following you guys, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I see this is a product that is very respectable." So at that point, it was like,
it's all about
you
it.
kind of grow to love the name at that point
Yeah.
because it is unique. And honestly, I kind of like that about this league. I like the fact that the names and the branding is so unique because um, I don't want to say it in a disrespectful manner, but I can only watch so many Panthers teams, or I can only watch so many Stars or Broncos, or with college football, all these different professional leagues, it's almost impossible to keep your branding unique. So the
Sure.
Lunkers, never heard that name. The Insane
Well,
Asylum,
you gotta be
never heard
you
that name.
gotta be strategic in your marketing too, because if we were the Chiefs and you're a Chiefs fan and you watch Chiefs football and then you come watch our football and you're gonna be upset because this isn't the Chiefs football. So one of our biggest goals is to make sure that we separate ourselves as an industry, as a business, as a individualized team that educates on the product because six man is going to be way different to watch. If you YouTube right now, there's like the six man championships played at the Dallas Cowboy Stadium. It's fun football to watch, but if you're someone that doesn't understand the game, it can get really confusing really quickly.
I could definitely see that. As far as the marketing aspect of it, when will you guys really hit the floor, or, hit the ground running as far as that goes?
So I'm already on it, man. I have so much crossover from Queen City that just kind of flows right into it. One of our biggest things right now is finalizing a jersey and helmet concept so we can start getting content out. We've got a lot of local businesses that are already super interested in what we're doing. So advertising is just kind of flying off the shelves right now, which is super awesome. We'll start putting together again. One of the things that I said in an interview yesterday was that we just want to educate. We want content that tells people what to expect. That way, when they get there, they are fans that are participating in gameplay because they know what's going on. And so I think the product itself is going to be fun. And I think again, just like Queen City, just like anything, as long as you do as much of the framework for it, your goals seem to fall into place.
100%. And then one final question that I just thought of: where can we catch these games next season?
So we had that question yesterday on a news. I did ESPN radio, and they asked about are we going to live stream them? And I don't know what the right answer is there, to be honest, because like the Savannah Bananas, the whole goal is that it's so fun in these highlight clips that people want to go out and experience it. So if we give it to everybody to watch it on channel 65, and we haven't been able to relay the experience of actually being there, does that dilute our product a little bit? So I'm not sure yet. We've had that conversation. We've been reached out to by different news medias and broadcasts places, but I don't know if that's the right market for sure just yet. So it may just be one of those things you got to see for yourself.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I had not heard that take on it, but that definitely makes sense. Well, thank you, Caleb. I appreciate your time today. I know you got a lot going on with, being the general manager and all these interviews that are popping up right away, I imagine. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get out of here. Thank you for your time. Oh, actually, real quick, before I let you get out of here, let's talk about your it's betterdadco.com, right?
Yeah, the Better Dad podcast. Yeah, so I started a podcast. My son will be 3 next month, and I've been navigating fatherhood as outspokenly as I can. When I started the process of looking to become a dad and trying to figure out how to be one, I didn't feel like there were a lot of resources for guys like me. And I'm a big, rough, tattooed guy, and so the whole like gentle fathering videos just didn't always jive with me. And so I was like, man, I'm just going to take my experience. I'm gonna be vulnerable about it. And so my podcast is just me kind of walking through things that I did really well that worked, and then things that I did not very well that didn't work, and just sharing kind of some of my experiences that I thought were just the standard of my childhood and my father experience. And then now taking those things to being a father myself. So it's the Better Dad podcast. You can find it on Spotify or Apple Music Podcasts. It's free to listen to. I'm always open to questions, feedback, anything like that. But it's me just trying to give one more dad encouragement to stay present in his home and to love his kids, man.
I love that. I love that. From one father to another, like I told you off camera, I think that's something that's very valuable to get somebody's unique perspective that, like you said, isn't necessarily gentle fathering is kind of a good thing. I think, a lot of times that this world has changed so much over the past couple generations that it's nice to see like a modern way to parent in my personal experience. So once again, thank you so much for your time, Caleb. I really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your weekend. Hopefully we get some more news about the Lunkers coming up here pretty quick.
We'll be in touch, buddy. Thanks again, man.
Definitely. Have a great one.
I'm a game changer.